Yeah, yeah, you'd lose that bet if you said yes.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, so welcome to episode 108 of Farm to Markets. This is the show where participants share their opinions, and that's about it. There's no time clock anymore. Uh, so today we were talking about the paradise paradox. If the current run up in tech stocks is like the 2000 tech bubble, another word for retirement. Congress found the fact that Congress found no evidence for UFOs, and what kind of shower head you use. All right, so there's as you know, because somebody, I think Joe recommended this topic to me, but there's a documentary floating around that at least I found the link in the write up in the Daily Montana, but the documentary is called The Paradise Paradox, which refers to the discrepancy between a ski towns, not necessarily Whitefish, but ski towns in general. There's a discrepancy between like the outward beauty of the town and the mental health of its residents. So interviews with locals reveal concerns about therapy costs, stigma, and limited resources for mental health. The narrative highlights efforts by community members and organizations to address these challenges, emphasizing the importance of support systems and fostering a sense of community. What did you think about the Paradise Paradox?
It was an interesting read. I would agree with the general idea that having good, social support systems and, mental health resources are generally a benefit. Um, I think my main issue was with some of the things that it sounded like were being pushed into the mental health system. Um, there's a lot of reasons for why people might be stressed out or feeling bad about their lives or whatever. You could lose a loved one unexpectedly, you lose a job, struggle with money, that kind of thing. I guess my main issue is I don't think those are mental health problems that require the intervention of medical professionals. Um, if you're diagnosed with, bipolar disorder or something, obviously go seek professional help. But, if you're stressed about work or money, I don't really think that going to a therapist and probably more often than not ending up being prescribed, mind altering drugs is really the answer to the problem. Um, I, I guess the the main issue I have with this is these are issues that you as a human being are supposed to work through and use as growing opportunities. And when you basically offload the responsibility of doing that to somebody else or to drugs, you're not really going to grow as a person and understand how you can, react and respond appropriately to difficult things happening in your life. And so while it may not be a popular opinion, I don't think we should, be sending people to therapists and then to the pharmacist uh, because they're struggling to make rent. That's something that a person should be dealing with on their own. Should I stay close to home and pay the price to do it? Should I move somewhere else that's more affordable? If we're just going to a therapist and dwelling on these problems, once a week, every week, forever, and then ending up on drugs, I don't see how that's actually solving the problem. I think it's just hiding the problems with chemicals. Uh, so again, while I would agree that people who genuinely need mental health intervention should absolutely get it, and good social support systems, family, friends, churches, community groups, whatever, those are all great. But a lot of the things that they're talking about in this article, I don't think are mental health related at all. I think they are, you need to grow and change as a human being and learn how to be an adult and handle your own problems.
I thought this was a really interesting article, and it hit home because it was written about whitefish. Not every day do we get to talk about topics that are front and center here where we live in our community. Now, before I start, I just like to say that because the paradise paradox is associated with, or maybe even directly linked to suicide, I don't want to come across as cold or insensitive, because suicide is a major and it's a heartbreaking problem in our area. However, I tend to think that we're looking through the wrong end of the telescope when it comes to finding a viable solution for the paradise paradox. A major and popular solution right now is to allocate more money to therapy and mental health services, like Alex alluded to. Now, these are important, but I see them as more of a temporary relief than a fundamental solution to these problems. Here's the paradox, or paradise paradox. You have younger folks with the group mindset and thinking that they can afford to live and to play in a very expensive area while working low-paying jobs. When they invariably realize that the lifestyle is unsustainable, that's when anxiety and depression ensue. Now, here's the hard truth. It takes a lot of money to live here if you want to play a lot. Now, here's a solution. If you can't afford to maintain the level of play you desire, you have to move to a cheaper town, or you have to work more and play less. Now, I'm not on my high horse saying this. I haven't been on a pair of skis since 2012, even though I really like skiing. My budget doesn't allow for nice mountain bikes. I don't have season golf passes. I don't drive speedboats. And because I don't have that lifestyle, I have zero stress about trying to live that lifestyle. Now, I have 3 kids. So I have this responsibility to equip them with the tools and the guidance on how to pursue happiness and live good lives. That's my role as a father. Now, never in a million years would I sit them down as young adults and say, okay, here's what you need to do. First, you need to find a really, really expensive resort town and you need to move there. Okay, now find really fun and flexible jobs that everyone wants so you know the pay is going to be low. Okay, now make sure you make play your main objective and do it by any means possible. Now, when living in paradise becomes a curse, double your therapy sessions and hang on. That's the way I see it. I really do. Paradise, it's not a right. It's not a place. I see it as a state of mind, and that state of mind is achieved once you've had enough life experience to fully appreciate the good things. It's a problem if you think you can just place yourself in paradise and maintain paradise without ever having to have earned that paradise.
I think the article was leading us toward a narrative that the solution is institutional when the problem really is individual. I have said it often to young people that affluence in the absence of adversity breeds toxic poisons in the human dimension. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people come here and they want to live the affluent lifestyle of people who just go to the wave and work out, and then they go to the juice bar and talk to their friends, and they have lunch, and then they go ski a few runs up on the mountain, and they go and they have drinks at the Firebrand, and then they go home and watch Fox News or whatever. The fact of the matter is that humans have a need for purpose. And if you come to Whitefish specifically just to recreate, you're putting yourself at mental health risk. There's a few things that the humans need. They need to have a reason to get up in the morning and get out of bed. And that's not just skiing and golfing. That includes things like volunteering or being in the marketplace and actually giving people what they want or need. But when I first moved here 30 years ago, I was fascinated at the number of people who showed up at the same time I did, thinking that they were going to ski all winter and fly fish all summer, and that they were going to make it. And Drew probably was too young to remember, but the first 3 years I lived here, I worked 65, 70 hours a week, and I was exhausted after all of my work and family requirements. But a lot of my peers were skiing, and I'm going, man, I must be doing something wrong. But looking back, nearly almost 100% of the people I showed up with 30 years ago, they're gone. They left. They're no longer here. But the people who just put their nose to the grindstone and worked, weren't very many of them, but the few that are, they're still here, and they're actually enjoying the Whitefish lifestyle. So I think that resort towns like Whitefish, they attract a certain mindset that, if actually followed, could be toxic to their own person, their own mental health.
So one thing is that the in the Daily I found the article in the Daily Montana. And I'm sure it's been other places. One thing though is that the paradox is there is a documentary called The Paradise Paradox that focuses on ski towns in general. So apparently it's not just specifically a whitefish thing. The one in the Montana was specifically focused on whitefish, but apparently there is a documentary that's being shown in whitefish that highlights the same issues in other ski towns. I thought that was kind of interesting that every ski town has the same issue. But one point I came across that I thought that might be accurate is that people that are predisposed, or not predisposed, but people that already have mental health problems seek out ski towns because they think that by going to like a really nice place where I can fly fish in the summer or ski in the winter, that will help my mental health. And so, because I thought it was curious how why is that specific to ski towns? But I think that whoever had that point had a good point. Is that I think people with mental health issues might be attracted to places like this because they think it'll help, make them happier. And I don't. Yeah, I think the points that you guys made are accurate. But I think that's largely like places like we live. While people are fortunate enough to work here, they are a magnet for people with mental health problems because by moving here, they think that will make their mental health problems go away, which I don't, obviously is not the case.
Well, Tom, but also the same thing can be said for Scandinavian countries. If you take a look, a lot of the happiness indexes that come out every year, Denmark is usually at the very top, along with Sweden and Norway. But the reality is they have lots of depression and mental health problems. And when they queried why, they find out that when you live in a place where everybody's supposed to be happy and you're not, it just exacerbates your unhappiness. And I think that's kind of the case in some of these ski towns is people show up and they go, I thought this was a happy place. How come I'm not happy? And they just circle the drain from there.
Yeah. And I think it's exacerbated in the service professions, because I used to clean clubs at a golf course. And I didn't, I had other things going on in my life, so I wasn't like super focused on it. But one thing was that everybody else is out having a good time, and I'm sitting here washing everybody's clubs. Like, this is kind of a bummer. And if I hadn't had other things going on in my life, I'd probably be like, what's going on here? But yeah, if you're watching other people have fun and you're not having fun yourself, and you don't have the means to do what they're doing, yeah, I mean, I can see how that might make things worse.
But you're not forced to watch people to have fun. I don't know. If I was pinched and squeezed financially, trying to make ends meet, and watching other people have fun, I wouldn't live here. I just wouldn't. But maybe that's just
Yeah.
I don't know how appropriate this analogy is, but somebody I was listening to one time said that it's not very much fun learning to play the violin, because if you want to get really good at the violin, you have to stay in at night. Your fingers are going to hurt. You have to put hours and hours of practice in. And but once you do that and you become a really good violin player, the reward is being a good violin player. But getting there is often not a lot of fun. And I think some people, their solution to like why they're sad or something like that is like, I just need to have more fun. When I think you actually find more fulfillment in doing things that aren't necessarily fun, but are more fulfilling. So, and I think that's kind of what everybody said anyways. All right. Really, really have to change the ringtone. It's just, it's too scary. I don't know how to read it. We'll have to.
There's going to be a client that's going to look at the timestamp. Well, I guess they wouldn't know, but like, hey, on Wednesday of last week, I called.
Yeah, that was me.
That was me. You didn't answer. I hope Erica grabbed that.
You'd have to be like one of 30 people that watch this. But anyways, back to the show. So the next topic is that booming prices in the artificial intelligence stocks have some obvious parallels with the dot-com bubble that inflated the stock market to outrageous highs in 1999 and 2000, the parallels that make some investors nervous today. According to a recent survey from Bank of America, 40% of fund managers think AI stocks are in a bubble. 45% say they're not, and 15% don't know. Do you think tech stocks are in a bubble similar to the 2000?
I tend to think so, yes. And the analogy I'll use is what's called the Gartner hype cycle. If you've never heard of it, just look that up. And what you'll see is, I think where we are is somewhere between the technology trigger and the peak of inflated expectations. That's where something new is created and everybody absolutely goes totally ballistic about it. And at a certain point, everybody realizes that either they overpromised and underdelivered, or it can't possibly deliver all the things that they are promising. So I think a lot of these tech companies are saying, we're going to start adding AI to this, AI to that, AI to this, that, and the other. And many of them are probably not going to see any real benefit to doing so, or the potential benefits aren't going to be nearly as great as they think. So I think there'll be a pullback. I don't think that AI in and of itself is a fad. I don't think it's going away. I think it will have major implications on certain industries, minor implications on others, maybe no implications on some industries. But every single company that's up 100 and whatever % over the last year, just because they had a press release saying they're going to include AI and whatever it is they do. Yeah, I think a lot of those companies are, at least their share prices are going to come back down a bit at some point. Now, again, when that is, I don't know, but I would expect that at some point we're going to see a bit of a pullback on AI, and then you will end up in what's called what was it called? The trough of despair. And then eventually you'll get to the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity. That's where, everybody's disillusioned, and then people figure out, okay, well, it actually works here. And then from then on, AI is just a normal part of the American economy. And once we get to that point, we'll see which companies are doing well and which ones are not. But for now, yeah, I think when you see like eye-popping returns just because a company says they're including AI in their business, I think that's a bubble.
On a scale of 1 to calling myself Chicken Little and putting a pot on my head, I'm probably about a 3 in terms of, are we in a similar .com era bubble as far as the tech sector goes? I just don't see it. There's a wide diversification through index funds, which unlike the .com era, investors primarily focused on these individual tech stocks, and today a lot of the assets are held in these broad-based index funds. And these funds spread investments across a wide range of sectors and industries and companies, which dramatically reduces the risk associated with any one particular failure of a company or a subsector. So diversification in index funds is a lot different now than it was in the early 2000s, late 90s. 2, we have more informed investment strategies. The .com bubble, it was largely driven by this fear of missing out or FOMO mentality, and that's not completely extinct. We've seen this recently. Think GameStop, AMC, Bed Bath Beyond, and I mean, do I dare say like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency? Now, granted, the valuations for tech companies they're really high, but at least they have earnings, and the ones that are really high have good earnings, and the ones that missed earnings are going down. So it's encouraging seeing some tech companies like Microsoft. I think Google is actually, both of those are down year to date. So the good ones are being rewarded and the bad ones are being punished. Just how it normally goes. During the .com bubble, that wasn't 100% true. Everyone was just dumping their money into stocks that some of them didn't even have earnings. That's ridiculous. That is a recipe for a bubble. And finally, the resilience of the S&P 500 and diverse economic sectors make me believe that this isn't really a bubble. Despite their significant influence, the current market is not solely driven just by tech stocks as it was in the go-go 90s. The S&P 500 includes companies from a lot of different sectors, makes it more resilient to sector-specific downturns. And even with the tech sector, companies they're more mature now. They're more financially stable. They have more diverse revenue streams, unlike the dot-com bubble with unproven business models. So no, I'm not too worried that this is a massive tech bubble, and I'm certainly not heading for the hills anytime soon.
I have no idea if we're in a bubble or not. And I'll say that back in the go-go 90s, when the tech stocks were going through the roof, I felt like we were in a bubble. I don't feel like we're in a bubble now. And the reason I say that is I think AI actually does provide an opportunity for the marketplace that is truly transformational. During the go-go 90s, people were buying things like Webvan and Pets.com and Red Hat and these other companies that kind of just went away after a while. But AI is it's in the big tech companies. I mean, if you take a look at what Google's doing and what Microsoft is doing, my gosh, Microsoft has kind of got their second wind with this AI thing here recently. These are big companies that even if AI becomes a big nothing burger, which I don't think it is, they're still going to be around because they're just so big and they're in every facet of our lives. So I think the idea is that make sure you have some tech companies in your portfolio, but don't have too much. Is that just make sure you diversify. Don't get too rich, don't get too greedy, but make sure you're invested.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the things that Drew said. Is that now pets.com is like my ultimate example of a company not to buy. But yeah, because the thing I think the thing that's different about today's tech rally is that you're actually buying something like pets.com. Like people were just buying that out of kind of like I would say Bitcoin. Except we're buying it because everybody else is buying it. It has .com behind it. Today, at least you're buying, like when people buy NVIDIA is like sky high, but NVIDIA is like the only semiconductor manufacturer that does like an AI chip. I don't know what that means, but what everything I've read that says that they're like one of the only semiconductor companies that actually has a competitive chip. Other people are, obviously trying to catch up, but right now you're buying it for a very geez, that was hard to get out. Specific reason. And so that encourages me that there's fundamentals about it. And then the same thing with Microsoft. Microsoft is just been blowing the doors off everything, but they continue, as like I think Drew already said, to prove that in their earnings and their sales. Apple's been down a little bit, but again, they also are selling products and they also are innovating, and you can actually buy something. I think in the tech bubble, more people were buying things that they weren't actually services. Like, why would you buy pets.com and why would it be up like 1,000%? It doesn't make any sense. But when you buy something like NVIDIA, I can see like there's actually a lot of fundamentals behind that. The other thing is that the companies that are up, they're not these new companies that nobody heard of. Some of them are. You get like your Nikola's in there, where they fool everybody and roll a truck downhill instead of drive it. But by and large, though, you're seeing companies like Apple, Amazon, Google, like big companies that have been around for a while and have lots of capital assets that aren't going anywhere. Those are the ones that are going up, and so you're actually buying quality companies instead of like a pets.com. So I'd say there's a number of differences. There's still stocks out there that are essentially trash, like Nikola and some other things. But as a whole, I would say it's different than the .com bubble.
Can I take a 60-second break? These kids are going wild in the bedroom. And they
I'll
need
go
a new
first
show.
for the next question.
What's that? All right, yeah.
Okay, go.
We just include a segment on Alex parenting. All right, so Fidelity says that people, when they reach retirement age, a lot of them don't actually retire. They actually look for enjoyable work, which kind of makes sense and is someone alluded to, some of the stuff we've already talked about. And one of the things I find hardest when I tell people like, okay, here's the date you want to retire, and everybody's like, I don't want to retire. I just want to do this. And I know that, but the thing is, like, what's a better word for retirement? Like, Joe, you're retired, but you're probably more busy than you were when you worked here. Like, what would be a better word for retirement?
Second chapter, is that yeah, right now I don't have to worry about making a living, but I'm certainly got a lot of life left in me. And so it's an opportunity to really pour in on volunteer work. And as you know, I started a new side hustle where I'm consulting people on a personal basis, primarily because I enjoy it. I come alive when I do it, and there seems to be a market for it. I think that for a lot of folks, we've been sold this bill of goods that when you're 65 or 60, this is the time where you relax and you ski and you golf, and then you basically experience the paradox where you find out that you're not as happy as you thought you would be. Uh, I have no dispersions or aspersions about being happy. I just am happy. And I think that one of the reasons I'm happy in my second chapter is that I'm busy doing things that God created me to do.
I'll, I would, I guess a good word for it, kind of like second chapter, is a encore career. Is just keep it going, but you still have a career, so to speak. It's just not the one you had before. It wasn't the main event.
The question, Alex, is what's a better word for retirement?
Okay, yeah. So so I actually looked up to see if there was an English word, like a single English word for this, and there isn't. But the fun thing about a lot of the Germanic languages is you can just kind of pile words on top of other words to create new words. And in Swedish, they actually did this already for someone who's really happy just working, and it's pronounced arbetsglädje, and it just means someone who's glad to work. So I figured maybe we could take that word and do the really American thing and just shorten it and just pronounce it like glathers or something like that. They're not workers, they're glathers. So they're someone who's just glad to work. So there's no English word for it, but I figured why not have a little fun with this one and come up with some Americanized version of a Swedish word.
That seems like something the Wall Street Journal would jump all over. You know,
Good, I'll pitch that.
you should, yeah, like
Yeah.
they're glathers or whatever. That seems like something they like to write about. I don't have an opinion because I was legitimately asking. So no, that was self-serving. All right, so the next one we got to go fairly quick. We have 6 minutes left. The congressional report on UFOs found that there is no evidence for UFOs. My reaction was like, of course you didn't. What do you think?
Yeah, so there is always the possibility that the people Congress interviewed ultimately have no knowledge of a UFO crash retrieval program. That could be because there isn't one. It could be because they, long ago offloaded it to defense contractors for plausible deniability. Or, it could just be, like those situations where, we investigated ourselves and we found we did nothing wrong, those kind of instances. So, I can't say with any certainty which one it is. I like to think it's number 3 because just the fact that there would be UFOs might be interesting, but who really knows? Yeah, I'm not surprised that the people who are accused of hiding UFOs said they found no evidence that they themselves are hiding that evidence. Yeah, not surprised.
It kind of reminds me of like a policeman or law enforcement arresting like a perpetrator with they caught him stealing a TV or something, or heard about him stealing TV, and the evidence stacked up, and they get him in the room. They're like, "Hey, did you steal that TV?" And he's like, "No." God, and they go, "Gosh, I really thought you did." Okay, well, you're free to go then. That's kind of how it reminds me of this.
Yeah.
I think there's a cover up. There just because they say no doesn't mean there's no evidence.
I don't know. I kind of go along with what Tom was alluding is that the reason they find any evidence because there isn't any. The whole UFO thing I kind of think is people are they're dying for something exciting to happen in their life, and the whole story of UFOs is exciting, so they're kind of hoping that it's half true, and then when it doesn't happen, they're thinking there's some sort of government conspiracy behind it. I'm no fan of the government. I think they do lots of conspiracies, but when it comes to UFOs, I don't think they're covering up anything.
They get a pass with UFOs in your book, huh? All
Yeah.
right.
They're lying about everything but UFOs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the conspiracy.
I was gonna say
Yeah,
I saw Men in Black. What's that?
Social Security will be there for you tomorrow, but there's no UFOs.
Yeah, you're right. I was gonna say I saw Men in Black. Like you're not gonna pull a fast one on me. Moving on to other dumb articles that the Wall Street Journal writes is that apparently there's something called status shower heads. Did you see this? Like your shower head can make it feel like you're in like a rainstorm or something like that. I don't know if you read the article. I was curious. Do you have any fancy shower heads in your in your house?
Believe it or not, I really like the idea of having some of these ridiculous shower heads, but I would absolutely never pay the price for them. Maybe if money was not an issue, a lottery win kind of a situation, fine. Otherwise, we have a pretty nice one. It's got like a big plate that has 3 different settings that are nice and a detachable wand, and it's great. The wand is really good for cleaning little kids. So, I think we've spent like $50-$60 on the whole setup, so definitely not a cheapo one, but ultimately looking at some of these people were talking about, it's, I guess there's always a reason, or there's always some way that you can keep up with the Joneses somehow. And I guess shower heads is the hot new one.
I probably own a shower head that's in the top 25% quality quartile from all the shower heads at Walmart. It's just your very run-of-the-mill shower head. But I kind of covet a nice shower. Those really cool free fall waterfall showers. I think it's cool. I would want to visit like a hotel and use it. I would never spend the money to buy one, but I think they're neat.
Basically, my shower head's probably in the lower quartile of shower heads that basically came with the house when I bought it. But in the fantasy world in which I live in my head, I've always wanted those the Commando 450 from Seinfeld. The one they use for hosing down farm animals. The big plate sits on top of the ceiling and comes straight down. Kind of used for toxic waste removal. But I haven't bought anything like that yet.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I don't pay much attention to the shower head unless what is it? If you have a hard water, you get that buildup around the shower heads, and it restricts the hole that the water comes out. So when it hits you, it feels like there's a laser going through your chest or something like that. And then I know it's time to unclog the shower heads. But other than that, yeah, I think it'd be cool. But yeah, I would never spend money on it. So.
Just soak it in vinegar.
Yeah, that's what Allison does. Yeah, so works like a charm. So.
Or get a better water filter.
Yeah, I could do that too. Both. Yeah, one's cheaper than the other. So. All right. Well, that's it for episode 108. We'll see you next week.